When he finally sees you glowing without him, it doesn't happen the way movies show it. There is no dramatic pause, no sudden music. It arrives quietly, almost casually. He scrolls one day and notices your face looks lighter, not happier in a loud way, just calmer. Your eyes aren't asking anymore. Your presence doesn't feel heavy, and something in him tightens, even though he can't name it. Because the truth is, when someone truly mattered to you, you don't feel their absence first. You feel their change. In this moment, the moment he realizes you're okay without him, is often when regret finally begins. Not because he lost you, but because he lost access to the version of you that once centered her world around him. At first, he assumed you would struggle, that you'd miss him the way he imagined you would, that your silence meant weakness, that your distance meant waiting. But instead, you didn't disappear, you expanded. And the human mind is strange that way. It doesn't always value what feels emotionally available. It values what it can no longer reach. Psychology tells us that familiarity dulls appreciation. When someone is always there, forgiving, understanding, emotionally present, the brain slowly stops registering their value as something rare. They become part of the background, a constant, a guarantee, not because they lack worth, but because the mind confuses comfort with permanence. While you were there, he didn't need to reflect. He didn't need to question himself. Your presence softened his edges without requiring him to grow. And then one day, that softness left. Not with anger, not with revenge, but with quiet certainty. That's when the mind begins to panic. Not loudly, but deeply. Because now, every improvement you make becomes a mirror he didn't ask to face. Your glow doesn't scream success. It whispers self-return. And that's far more unsettling. When he sees you thriving without him, something breaks inside the illusion he once lived in. The illusion that he was the source of your happiness. The illusion that you needed him to feel whole. The illusion that he had time. Psychologically, regret often doesn't come from missing someone. It comes from realizing you misjudged them. He didn't realize your love was a gift until it stopped being offered. He didn't realize your patience was rare until he had to sit with his own patterns. He didn't realize your presence was stabilizing until the silence grew loud. And here's the part most people don't talk about. Seeing you glow without him doesn't just make him miss you, it makes him question himself. Because now he has to confront the uncomfortable truth that your growth happened after the connection ended. Not because you wanted to hurt him, but because you finally had space to hear yourself again. And space changes people. You stopped shrinking to be understood, stopped explaining feelings that were never met halfway, stopped waiting for emotional effort to catch up to your emotional depth. That's not revenge. That's nervous system repair. Psychologically, when someone loses access to a person who once regulated their emotions without realizing it, they feel destabilized. They can't quite explain why things feel off, why other connections don't land the same way, why your absence feels heavier now than it ever did before, because your presence wasn't loud. It was grounding, and grounding isn't noticed until it's gone. Now comes the inner conflict. Part of him, Bale, feels drawn back, not just to you, but to the version of himself who felt chosen, who felt secure without trying, who felt admired without earning it. Another part of him resists, because regret requires accountability, and accountability threatens the ego, so his mind oscillates. He tells himself you're just doing well right now, then wonders why it still bothers him weeks later. He convinces himself he's fine, until your name crosses his mind at random moments of quiet. This isn't longing, it's dissonance. The brain hates unresolved meaning. He can't reconcile how someone he underestimated became someone he now admires from a distance. He can't reconcile how you moved forward without bitterness, because bitterness would have made the story easier. Anger is predictable. Growth is confronting. Your glow tells him something painful without saying a word. It tells him you were never asking for too much. He was just offering too little. And here's where psychology becomes uncomfortable. Regret isn't always about wanting someone back. Sometimes it's about realizing you failed to meet the moment when it mattered. He may never reach out, he may never admit it, but internally, the realization settles. You didn't lose value when you left. He lost clarity when you stayed too long. And while he sits with that, something else happens, something important for you. You stop needing him to see it. At first, growth often starts unconsciously. You focus on healing, on stabilizing, on remembering who you were before you bent yourself into emotional shapes. And then one day, you notice the shift. You laugh differently. Your energy doesn't scan rooms for approval anymore. Your confidence isn't performative, it's rooted. That's when the glow becomes real. Not the kind that demands attention, the kind that doesn't need it. Psychologically, this is when attachment dissolves. Because attachment feeds on uncertainty, on waiting, on emotional imbalance. When you become self-contained again, the bond loses its grip. And ironically, that's often when the other person finally feels it. But by then, something has changed. You're not glowing to be seen. You're glowing because you stopped dimming. And that difference matters. Because now, if he looks at you, he's not seeing an invitation. He's seeing closure. He realizes you didn't leave to be chased. You left to breathe. That's what creates regret that lingers. Not the loss of you, but the realization that he didn't recognize your value when it was close enough to touch. Psychology shows us that people regret not what they didn't have, but what they mishandled, what they assumed would stay, what they postponed appreciating, and you became the proof. Not through words, not through confrontation, but through quiet evolution. Your life didn't pause without him. It aligned, and alignment is undeniable. Here's the shift that matters most. Your glow isn't a message to him, it's a message to you. It says you survived disappointment without becoming hardened, that you grew without becoming cold, that you learned to choose yourself without turning love into a battlefield. You didn't win by being admired again. You won by not needing to be. That's psychological maturity, because real power isn't being missed, it's being whole. If regret lives in him, it's not your responsibility to carry it. It belongs to the gap between who he was and who he needed to be. And you don't have to shrink to soothe that gap. You didn't glow to make him regret everything. You glowed because you returned to yourself. And that's the kind of growth no one can undo. Not with apologies, not with nostalgia, not with delayed realization, because once you understand your worth, you don't need anyone to catch up. You simply continue forward, calm, clear, and finally at peace.